Gwen says that this place gives her the creeps as they were flying through space in a plumber ship, as there was a strange material around them much like a spider web, and Hobble says that he doesn't like flying through the Anner system, with Ben telling Rook that he'd come up with a name for his latest guy he'd unlocked from fiddling, as he'd thought about calling them Atomics. Rook tells Hobble that this is the fastest route to the nearest plumber base, and then says that the name sounds interesting and he would be curious to see what they could do in battle. While they were flying past a few of the planets, and one of the forest moons where the Loboans lived, they could faintly hear howling because of how close they were. As they'd gone past Anner Transel, the Omnitrix began beeping, with an automated voice saying new lifeform detected, is scanning, and then the main screen part of it began turning, before it said scan failed due to distance from subject. All Omnitrix functions due to be locked out until new lifeform is scanned, and Ben tells Rook to take them down there. Rook says that may be a bad idea as they were unwelcome by the people below, but Ben tells him to do it. Gwen asked why they wouldn't be welcomed, and Ben explains that on Anner Transel they were the monsters, but not to worry as there was a plumber stationed there that he knew from his old academy days. Nodding, they fly down and land before getting out and going to follow the signal to find the source of the new DNA signature. Though Ben says that it's strange, usually these streets would be packed with people. They'd better stay close just to be safe, and the others nodded as they continued on further, following the signal before someone called out to them. The person that had called out ran over as the others prepared for a fight, but Ben told them that it was okay. This is Scout, the plumber he was telling them about just a moment ago. Scout then says that he wishes it were on better circumstances. However, they got a serious problem down here right now, and it's bad. Ben asked what he means as the citizens all appear having some strange device on their heads. Rook asked Ben if he has any idea what those are, but he says this one's new to him. He'd never encountered anything like it during his previous travels. Though before they could say more, some more of those things flew out of nowhere and hit Rook and Scout, with Ben blocking with his arm and Gwen using her magic to protect herself. Another of the strange items had hit Hobble too, but as he'd sat up, it slipped down off of him. Gwen asked why it didn't stick to him as they were backing away from the crowd, and Hobble explains that his species secretes a slippery protective outer layer for their skin. They then hear someone calling out that it was called a corruptura. Following the voice, they find Zaskare and his guys along with the new person they hadn't been aware of yet, as they say that the device allows Lord Transel to control the bodies of these victims. Ben growls Zaskare's name as Lord Transel's eyes lit up and the people began to move towards them under his control. The Omnitrix beeps saying new lifeform DNA analyzed, and Ben tells them to step back, hitting the watch, changing into one of Lord Transel's species, and almost fed off of Hobble but got kicked in the face and shook his head, apologizing to them. Zaskare says that their friends are now puppets and they were ordered to attack by Transel. Ben throws Hobble at the crowd, knocking them back before telling Gwen to clear a path, as she started to use her magic, creating a barrier, as the crowd tried to overwhelm her and attack all at once. Meanwhile, Ben had gone airborne and spat corrupturas of his own at Zaskare's minions and ordered them to attack. They do as Ben commanded, and he says ordering around minions was kind of fun, but Gwen called out that there were too many as the crowd and their fellow plumbers began to pile over the lot of them, but Ben unleashed some sort of strange energy that created a pathway. He then ordered Zaskare's goons with them as they ran off to regroup. Gwen says that they should review what they know so far. The main things are that Zaskare is back and has teamed up with some sort of alien vampire, and they now have an army of monsters after them because of that. Ben then goes on to add that they also turned their friends into puppets as well, and Hobble says that Ben also tried to eat him. Ben apologized for that and said that it was more like he was going to drain his energy before jumping down to the others. He says that they need to find out where Zaskare's hideout is and see if there's a way they can take them down. Hobble asked how exactly they were going to do that, and he whistles at the minions, asking who was going to show the way, as they'd been forced to raise their hands. They then ask what exactly Zaskare was planning to do. The next scene we see was that they busted through the wall of the castle using the plumber ship rather than fighting their way through, and Ben calls out for no one to move as Rook had used his proto-tool to break the blaster that Hobble had, apologizing as he was not in control of his body, with Gwen using her magic to help fight as Ben then called for Zaskare's minions to attack and stop their plan. We get Ben fighting against Transel while while calling out to Hobble to find a way to shut down the process, break all the chambers if they have to. Lord Trancel, however, says that he is not a true Vladat and only fit to be his slave, as he tried to hypnotize them. But that doesn't work, as Ben tells him that there's only one person there that has him under their power, and he isn't them. The Vladat says that his will is strong but his flesh is weak, with Ben laughing and telling them to just call him Swampfire, before changing back to human again. And he then says that it's about time they timed out, standing up and stretching as the Corrupturas on Zascare's minions broke apart, and Dr. Victor then grabbed Ben before he could dial in another transformation. And Gwen calls out a magic spell that sent fire at him, but Scout had blown it away with his howl. Lord Trancel sped a Corruptura, but Victor dropped him and crushed the device in his hand, saying that he hates the Vladats even more than he hates Ben. We find that Hobble had gotten to the ship's controls and began blasting at the pods as Lord Trancel grabbed Ben, dangling him from a high place, and then tells him that his energy would be delicious. Ben then gets mad and asks if he looked like a snack to them, and Gwen, who had overheard, says that he does to her, which confused the Vladat, as Ben slipped from his shirt, hitting the Omnitrix now that it was recharged, and something obviously heavy hit the ground, causing smoke to kick up. Once it had cleared, we see the alien Ben was telling Rook about earlier that he'd called atomics. Everyone was staring at this new alien transformation as he'd stood up and began focusing the energies flowing around inside of his suit, creating a light that began to get brighter and brighter till it was like a small star, and the light from it had caused the Corrupturas on their friends to be broken apart and shredded Zascare to atoms, as he'd said to try some fusion cuisine. Victor grabbed at Trancel as the light was causing them serious pain, and Rook asked what they had planned, with the doctor saying that they were going to put him someplace safe. We then see Trancel in a crystal coffin pointing facing forwards towards the Anner Systems' sun, as Ben was telling Scout that it was good to see them again, but maybe next time they'd actually be able to catch up.